Joining us right now, our economist extraordinaire. He is a professor at the University of Maryland, Peter Morici. First of all, first things first, Peter Morici, how are your Terrapins going to do today against Marshall in the Military Bowl?
Oh, I think they'll do pretty well.
All right. That's all. Thank
That's
you.
all I'm going to say.
Thanks for joining us, Peter.
I thought the Giants were going to win the Super Bowl.
Well, there you go. And they're not even in the Super Bowl.
Well, at least that way I can't be that wrong.
All right. Peter, let's talk about unemployment. That seems to be the big topic right now. Of course, Congress isn't here to do anything about it, but tomorrow the
extended unemployment insurance benefits?
Yes.
I wonder whether Nancy Pelosi has a family. She was out demonstrating just before Christmas. You know, really, it had no traction at all. I don't think it's really within the government's purview to guarantee people's income for a couple of years after they lose a job. And that's what we're talking about. Because now, we're 5 years out from the financial crisis. I think we're far beyond the point of emergency measures. If we extend them again, we're talking about a permanent entitlement.
Right.
Is it wise to guarantee a people income for 2 years at a time of unemployment? I think not.
So Jim Pethokoukis, American Enterprise Institute, he's no bleeding heart liberal, he's no Keynesian. He makes the case that this is a unique situation because in this weak recovery, the employment picture has been so bad, and the fact that there are just no jobs out there, people need this, and in the long run, it's a small investment to make, considering that money gets pumped back into the economy.
There are people hurting, I acknowledge that, but it's the president that needs this. This keeps him from doing the things that he should be doing to fix the economy, instead making it worse. I mean, think about the damage that Obamacare is doing to employment and so forth, but also more fundamental things that caused the financial crisis, like really straightening out the banks. They continue gambling up there, even with Dodd-Frank. They've found new ways to do it as opposed to making constructive loans. And they still haven't fixed the trade problem with China, or letting us drill for oil offshore. You wrap all those things together, and you got 5 million jobs, and nobody's unemployed.
Well, Peter, let me ask you a little bit about another leg in the stool of income inequality, which is what the Democrats are pushing right now in terms of new legislation in 2014. We're talking unemployment benefits, but another piece of this is raising the minimum wage. There's a plan out there that would raise the minimum wage to over $10 from where it is now, nearly a 40% increase. And what do you think of that idea and the argument Democrats make that this will help the economy?
Well, it won't help the economy. That is simple. Basically, raising the minimum wage above the market clearing price will create some small unemployment. It's not a lot because of the elasticities. We call it the responsiveness of the demand for labor at such a low price. But you can do more to automate what goes on at places like McDonald's. That said, if we suspend economics for a minute and say society has a minimum wage, what should it be? And it doesn't have to be where supply equals demand. The minimum wage right now, and I'm not talking about what the district just did, but nationally, is very low. And what the administration proposed was to bring it back into line with what it was, say, 30 years ago in terms of inflation.
Yes.
And so, I just want to color the conversation by that I find it almost very disheartening to see people working for $7.15 or $7.30 an hour, whatever it is. I find it very, very disheartening. And raising it not tomorrow to $10, but over several years, brings it back to where it was when it was, say in the 60s, and so it's not a terribly large increase. My feeling is, if I were a Republican, I would want to get it off the table, because look what's happening locally in the absence of that. We're getting much more aggressive minimum wage increases in Maryland.
That's right. A lot of states are raising them, yeah.
Basically, the liberal mayors are going into business for themselves. And I don't think that's healthy for their cities. And I don't think it really is their role.
But Peter, I mean, constitutionally, why not let local municipalities or states determine this on their own based on the cost of living in any specific municipality and get the federal government out of it? Maybe what's right for this area, Washington, D.C., Montgomery County, which is a pretty high-income area, isn't necessarily right for Oklahoma City, where the cost of living is different. Doesn't that make more sense?
Constitutionally, a lot of things are constitutional, but we don't do them, so I don't know that that's the right.
Well, all right, then forget it. Leave the Constitution out of it.
Okay,
Doesn't it make more economic sense if it costs more to live in Washington or New York City or San Francisco? Sure, raise the minimum wage there if that's what the local government decides to do. But why should the Congress make that decision and enforce that standard on a city in the middle of America where maybe the cost of living isn't the same?
Well, if the Congress doesn't do that, then you sort of have a race to the bottom. You have some municipalities or some localities or some states, set very low wages, and actually drive down what things would be, and then you have other people that go too far and they go to extremes. It's in the interests of the federal government for the economy to run well generally. And certainly, they have every right to do whatever they want. But I think it's a very foolish thing what they're doing in the district as to how high they're setting it.
Okay. Well, wait, why is that, though? If you think the wages are too low, you were just saying, I'm a little confused.
Well, it's a matter of how far you go.
Okay.
This is one of these things where unless you go with the equilibrium wage, where supply equals demand, which means no minimum wage and let the market set it, then you're into a subjective what should it be, okay? But look at CTAC. CTAC basically is custodian to a national resource, and that is where the big passenger planes, get themselves fitted to go across the Atlantic. They put the meals on them and things like that. It's south of Seattle, right? They decide to set it at $15 an hour. All they're doing is exploiting the rest of us because now that infrastructure is there, it is very difficult to move. So what they're basically doing is setting a monopoly price that exploits the airlines and the rest of us through the airlines. Now, the wages of those workers are a relatively small thing, but it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, this is not. Once you get involved in regulating markets, this is an example, and this is simple, of the complexity you can create, and it demonstrates to us why things are going so badly for Obamacare. Is because they've tried to do these kinds of things without great effect.
Interesting.
Right. Peter Morici, real fast, we only got 30 seconds left, but Wall Street looks like is going to end the year at a record high. Basically, the Dow has jumped about 30% in 2013. Is this because of the president's policies? Does he deserve credit for this?
Well, the economy, the stock market sunk so far prior to the president coming in office in his early days. A lot of this is merely rebound. The stock market reached about 80 to 90% of this level 11 years ago. The stock market, on an inflation-adjusted basis, has compared to say the turn of the century, is not at an extraordinary level. The economy recovering certainly is the reason the market is back up. And if you want to give the president credit for that, then you have to give him credit for the stock market.
Yeah. All right, Peter Morici, thanks so much for joining us. Happy New Year to you, by
Take
the way.
care.
All right, thank you. Peter Morici, economist and professor from University of